I was introduced to LifeWave patches about just over a year ago. It was a year ago in June. And I've always kind of been connected with holistic healing modalities because my son's illness. So I have four children and they all have medical issues. Um, my holistic healing journey started with my son. He has eosinophilic esophagitis. And when you're a mama and you hear you don't have any other choices but to put your kid on a feeding tube, and know in your heart that that's not true, you will literally do anything to move mountains to find different ways to heal your son. But what I didn't know when that journey started was that there was going to be so many other things in my path that were going to be coming my way that I would have to be prepared for. And so I honestly believe that God gave me Mackay and his special medical journey to give me the insight and the faith of different types of modalities to heal your children because he knew that I was going to need them. So fast forward about 2 years into my journey, and my daughter was diagnosed with a ganglioneuroblastoma the size of a softball on her spine, which was cancerous. She was 6 years old, and she was just, this healthy, never been sick. She had no symptoms. And the way I found the tumor was kind of another story, but I was just went from this beautiful, perfect, healthy child to boom, she has cancer overnight. And it just rocked my world. Fast forward now, she will be 4 years cancer free. This past September, she celebrated 4 year cancer free in her journey, and it was all holistic. She did have surgery to remove the tumor, but I was able to negotiate with the oncologist, if you will, to avoid chemo and radiation, which is really rare in California because they will literally take your child away from you if you refuse those modalities. But her oncology team saw what I was able to do with her in just a few short months holistically, and they had faith in what I was doing. And thank God they did, because my Leah is happy and healthy. So fast forward the journey to a year ago. So my mom passed away of cardiomyopathy. And so I always get my children screened for heart conditions because it is a genetic disorder. And a year ago, just over a year ago, I had all four of my kids have their echocardiograms done. And the sonographer that performed the echocardiograms was the nicest man. I mean, he just had such a gentle, genuine spirit about him, very compassionate, loving man. And each one of the echocardiograms takes about 45 minutes to an hour to do the diagnostic test. And I have four children. So we got to know each other pretty well in that, 3.5, 4 hour time span. And he spoke to my children and talked to them about their medical journeys. And he spoke to Mackay about his EOE, and he talked to my Leah about her cancer. And you could tell that he really was taking a vested interest in their stories. So when he got done with the echocardiograms, he looked at me and, he's not supposed to give me results, right? But we had built this rapport. And he said, I know that you're an empowered mom that's going to want to know what's coming down the pipelines. And I just want to tell you and answer questions for you. This is what I found. And I just braced myself because I've heard, the worst of the worst in my history of the, health of my children. I'm like, okay, whatever it is, I'm going to have the tools I need to fix it. Like that was instantly what came in my brain before he even told me anything. And it was almost like it shifted the conversation of him telling me that my oldest daughter, who was almost 15 at the time, had cardiomyopathy. It was actually pretty severe, affecting both sides of her heart. So if you don't know what cardiomyopathy is, it's basically where the blood goes into the heart and out of the heart, and it's not pumping at the right rates. So it goes in the right way and comes out sluggishly. So for McKinsey, I wrote the numbers down here. It's called the injection fraction rate, and a normal injection fraction rate is between 55 and 70%. McKinsey's was at 46%. My Leah, my little cancer survivor, she also had cardiomyopathy, and her injection fraction rate was 51%. So the sonographer is telling me this and explaining it to me, and at some point he, almost got teary-eyed. It shifted for me comforting him, and I remember this moment just like it was yesterday. I looked at him, I said, "Don't worry, watch what I'm capable of. I'm going to fix this." And he just like, okay. He's like, "Well, I'm going to be praying for you." And I said, "Thank you. I appreciate that." So that was a year ago. This past week, my kids went back for their echocardiograms. They do them annually. And it was the same sonographer, and we, caught up, and he was telling me about his daughter and his wife and some medical things that were going on with his family. And I said, I'm really hopeful for good news today. He's like, "Yeah, me too." So he performed the echocardiogram on all three of my daughters. My son was fine last year, so he didn't have to repeat it. Excuse me. My oldest daughter had cardiomyopathy. My second daughter had a small hole in her heart that they're just checking on, but they're not concerned about it. So that was fine. But he finished the echocardiograms and he turned around and he goes, "What did you do?" I said, "What do you mean? Do you have good news?" And he's like, "Yeah, this is unbelievable." And he ran the numbers and did all his magic in the report that he had to do. So McKinsley's ejection fraction rate went from 46% to 60%, which is within normal range. Normal range is from 55 to 70%. My Leah's injection fraction rate went from 51% to 64%. So not one, but both of my daughters are now within normal range. And technically, I'm waiting to meet with their cardiologist next week, but technically are no longer presenting symptoms of cardiomyopathy. So it was just like a very reassuring moment of God really did give me the tools that came into my path, because a year ago when I was introduced to patches, I was researching like how can this help my kids, And then we got hit with this cardiomyopathy diagnosis, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to patch them up. So for a solid year, I have been using patches on my daughters, well, all my kids, but specifically for McKinsley and my Leah, trying to help strengthen their heart muscle. Like that was my whole intention. So of course, the X39, like this is the staple of everything. This is the patch that's going to help regenerate the production of those stem cells. So we'll talk a little bit about what all that does later, but this is like the GoDaddy of like, this has to happen, right? And then there's supporting patches that we offer that if you have a specific medical need or a specific thing that you're trying to strengthen, that we can use. And one of that is our Carnosine. So these are the two patches I put on the girls consistently for a year. And that's pretty much all I changed. They've had a healthy diet. They've had, of course, their fish oils. There's a lot of different modalities with our kids to keep them healthy and strong because of their medical history. But these are the two. Like, there's nobody on earth that can tell me that these two patches did not take away the symptoms. Can I say that? I don't know. I don't know what I can say. I'm not easily filtered. Whatever. This worked. My kids are now presenting normal ranges for their cardiomyopathy, and I was just over the moon. In fact, I called Peter, I called Marcy, I called everybody. I was like, "You're not going to believe this." And for me, I mean, just being a mom of 4 kids that all have medical issues, those wins are huge. And it's just one thing we can take off of our plate. We don't have to worry about that being an issue because I know how to support them to keep their heart healthy and strong. And it's been proven. And so I can't wait to meet with their cardiologist next week and just kind of say, "You want to hear about this?" Because the sonographer was just over the moon happy about it. In fact, he had some family members that they were doing a GoFundMe for to save for stem cell therapy for his MS. And I was like, "No, you need to check this out. There's so many testimonies of how this is helping." And so he's on board and really excited about researching it and trying to figure out how we can help his family as well. So that's just really the gift. And I feel like our stories and our journeys are not meant for us. They're meant for us to find the tools to get through them and then to be the beacon of light and hope to help others with it. So that's why I was so happy that Peter and Suzanne invited me here tonight to share the story and to help whoever needs to hear this message, just to not give up hope and to just keep finding things that work. And these patches, you guys, they work. Like, I got mine on, and I have so many other stories I can tell you about things that they've helped me personally with, and my son with EOE. But tonight I just wanted to focus on the good news of McKinsley and my Leah and their great numbers that we found out earlier this week. So last week rather. So